is seen here in the early stages of his 45-minute rampage.
This case takes place in the United Kingdom on the 4th of September 2014. Palmira Silva was born in southern Italy in 1932. In the 1950s, she left her homeland and moved to London, seeking opportunities and a new beginning. She took up a job as a nanny, and she eventually met a man by the name of Domenico, who had separately immigrated from Italy too. The couple grew closer, and they began a relationship. They saved every penny they could to establish their own businesses. This dream took form in a succession of cafes and snack bars that they ran in various parts of the city. While the businesses became a focal point in their lives, Palmira's true pride and joy was in her family. She and her husband Domenico had 2 children together, and Palmira was a devoted mother and grandmother. But tragically in 2008, Domenico passed away. Yet in the face of this loss, Palmira remained strong. She and her son continue to nurture the family business, Silva's Cafe in Edmonton. As time passed, her family expanded to include 6 grandchildren and a great-grandchild. However, the family would soon suffer a tragic loss. Just a week after returning home from a family holiday in Italy, 82-year-old Palmira's life was brutally cut short. On the 4th of September 2014, in the final hours before the tragic events unfolded, a sense of unease seemed to linger around 25-year-old Nicholas Salvador. Nicholas was somewhat of a troubled individual. He was a cage fighter and fought under the alias of Fat Nick. He also had a regular job, but 3 days before he had been fired. Anyway, on the 14th, Nicholas visited a local cafe. He ordered a meal, ate it, and left without paying. A member of staff realized and pursued him. They successfully got him to pay the bill. However, the worker at this cafe would later recall that Nicholas seemed to be somewhat depressed and was acting strange. At the time, Nicholas was living with a friend. He returned to this friend's house, and once there, he retrieved a large knife and a wooden pole. The friend he was living with had 2 cats. Nicholas took this knife and decapitated both of the animals. He would later say that he believed them to be demons. Following this, Nicholas left the house. He went through the back gardens and houses, leaving behind a trail of devastation. He destroyed and climbed over a number of fences before reaching Palmira's home. Palmira was in her own garden when Nicholas jumped the fence. He walked towards the defenseless elderly woman and grabbed her. Nicholas stabbed Palmira a number of times. He then used the large blade to behead her, leaving her behind in a pool of her own blood. Palmira died from multiple stab wounds at the scene. It's reported that she would not have been alive when she was decapitated. The brutality continued as Nicholas fled through the gardens, leaving torn fences in his wake, while law enforcement worked urgently to protect nearby residents from the unfolding terror. In a desperate confrontation with armed officers, Nicholas's rampage finally came to an end after he was tased 6 times. After the 45-minute rampage, Nicholas was arrested. In the wake of the horrific attack, the community stood united in shock and disbelief. As the aftermath of the rampage settles, questions hung heavy in the air. What kind of person would commit such senseless violence on an innocent and beloved woman? Nicholas Salvador's story is one marked by a series of red flags that signaled his descent into darkness. As an only child, his parents brought him to the United Kingdom from Nigeria, but he left home when he was around 13. He reportedly felt unloved for much of his life, and he rarely smiled, never had any money or a girlfriend, and during the time of the killing he was unemployed. In the lead up to the disturbing rampage, his friends had noticed he had developed a disturbing obsession, a fixation with videos depicting beheadings. For weeks he immersed himself in extreme and macabre content. This fascination with extreme gore seemed to captivate his mind. Nicholas's association with religion added another layer of complexity to his already troubled mind. In 2012, he converted to Islam, but seemed to gravitate towards the more extremist side. He would spend hours on the internet, watching jihadi videos and watching their propaganda, although in 2014 he converted to Buddhism. In the midst of this dark obsession with gore, Nicholas's life was in a state of turmoil. He lost his job as a billboard worker, a blow that seemed to further push him to the edge. Those who knew Nicholas stated that he would frequently consume whole bottles of hard spirits and take large amounts of illegal substances. The signs of Nicholas's impending violence were alarmingly clear to those who knew him best. Between the frequent use of intoxicants, his fascination with violence, and the extremist religious beliefs, friends had feared that he would eventually snap. Following Nicholas's arrest, it became clear to the authorities that he was suffering from serious mental health issues. His words, echoing with delusion, painted a stark picture of his fractured reality. His delusions had reportedly included viewing Palmyra as an otherworldly entity. He told mental health workers that he believed that Palmyra was a reincarnation of Hitler, and said that he needed to kill her because of this. Nicholas was charged with murder, and the trial would soon begin.
So black t-shirt, black tracksuit bottoms.
Nicholas Salvador, a paranoid schizophrenic, is seen here in the early stages of his 45-minute rampage. Armed with a large knife and a wooden pole, he has already killed 2 cats. The cage fighter vaults the garden fences with ease. Then he tries to attack the passengers in a car, but they escape.
Now looks like he's got serious mental health issues.
Moments later, in her garden, he had a brief exchange with 82-year-old Palmyra Silva. Salvador repeatedly stabbed her, then beheaded her. The destruction continued outside, as officers feared Salvador was about to come into contact with others.
We do have children in these back gardens.
He eventually stepped inside a house as the police ushered others to safety.
I'm speaking to the meal now. 300.
The inspector you could hear just then says the incident was simply terrifying.
It was definite rage. There was sheer anger. His eyes were absolutely wide. He wasn't speaking to me, but I could see that he was enraged. And being honest, I was scared because I was fully aware of what he'd done before, and he was definitely enraged. Yeah.
Cafe owner Mrs. Silva was well known in Edmonton as kind and chatty. One of her granddaughters has described how she heard that horrific news last September.
You know, the whole world knew before I knew, which really upset me. And so you get yourself home, and I don't know, you don't even know how to comprehend what's happened. And you still, to this day, you think, you know, it's a big nightmare, and you think you're going to wake up and everything's going to be absolutely fine.
In the courtroom, the truth of Nicholas's condition was uncovered. Expert opinions concluded that paranoid schizophrenia had driven him to commit the unspeakable acts. Jurors watched footage from the police helicopter, capturing Nicholas shirtless and armed, vaulting over garden fences in the vicinity of Palmyra's home. However, the gruesome crime scene images were not shown to the jury. When speaking to Nicholas, the judge said, "It has been established beyond any reasonable doubt that you killed Miss Silva in an attack of extraordinary brutality and ferocity. You thought you were encountering some demonic force which had taken human form. You could have not been more deluded. This gentle 82-year-old lady should have been able to live her life in peace and security, but sadly, that was not to be." The jury's verdict echoed the grim diagnosis made by experts, finding Nicholas not guilty of murder by reason of insanity. He was ordered to receive treatment at Broadmoor High Security Hospital, confined in a high-security psychiatric hospital. The outcome was unfavourable for Palmyra's family. Her daughter spoke of the profound impact of her mother's tragic murder and the way it inflicted their lives. She said, "We as a family no longer feel safe and feel really insecure, drained, and have to work hard just to focus. A few of us here are having regular counselling to help us come to terms with what has happened, but nothing is the same. A lot of joy in everyday things has now gone." While experts assert that this killing was the result of Nicholas's deteriorating mental health, the public and press have speculated whether or not it had anything to do with the extremist organisations that Nicholas enjoyed watching online, though some believe that these comparisons were more about politicising a tragedy. Horrifically, Palmyra was the third woman in London to be beheaded that year, and some have said that her murder highlights the need for mental health to be taken more seriously. As of right now, Nicholas has been receiving treatment at Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital in Berkshire, and will remain at that institution indefinitely.